A breakup fee of 100 million. Just write whatever amount you want. When I slapped the check in my ex-girlfriend's face, the whole internet was cursing me for showing off. The next second, I bought out the entire grain and cooking oil market, and 10 tons of salt filled the warehouse. With 6 hours left on the apocalypse countdown, she mocked me on live stream for having a mental breakdown. What the viewers didn't know was that by tomorrow, she would be kneeling at my door for half a moldy steamed bun. And I was busy stuffing the last armored vehicle into my dimensional space. Parallel world. Ding. 11:35 on August 18th, 2033. Red alert. The super typhoon Minghu is expected to make landfall in the early morning of the 19th, with winds of force 12 to 17, accompanied by several days of torrential rain. Coastal residents are advised to prepare for household safety. A phone alert popped up, and almost no one took it seriously. In a Michelin 3-star restaurant in Demon City, I was devouring a table full of delicacies, looking exactly like a starving ghost reborn. A female streamer pointed the camera at me, her face full of disgust. People like this lower Michelin standards, so low class. Even the waiter couldn't hide the contempt in his eyes. I didn't care at all. With both hands, I grabbed meat, picked up dishes, and drank soup, sweeping through the food like a whirlwind. When natural disasters descend, only the fittest survive. In my previous life, super typhoons, torrential rain, floods, extreme cold, extreme heat, plagues, earthquakes, tsunamis, the global death rate reached 98%. In the 3 years of the apocalypse, I drank filthy water off the ground, gnawed on moldy steamed buns, and fought wild dogs for food. Why would I care about other people's opinions? Other than eating, everything else is bullshit. I was reborn the day before the natural disaster struck, and I even awakened a spatial ability. This time, I'm going to stockpile supplies like crazy, holding the code to the natural disasters in my hands and living like a real person. After eating my fill, it was 12:30 noon. The disasters would strike at dawn, and I didn't have much time left. I rented a large truck and headed straight for the city's biggest wholesale market. On the way, I got a call from Old Sunday. He was a security guard at Sakura Residential Complex, and when he was young, he took a knife for someone and ended up with a limp. He never married or had children his whole life, and we got along pretty well. In my previous life, he was hacked to death protecting the complex. His body disappeared that very night, and even from the top floor where I lived, I could smell meat soup. After being reborn, the first thing I did was replace the windows with bulletproof glass and install the thickest stainless steel door, reinforced with 3 steel plate bolts, so solid that even a hammer couldn't smash it open. In the apocalypse, the first person to make a move on you is often someone close to you. I asked Old Son to keep an eye on the renovations for me. On the phone, he asked, "Xiaozhou," some young guy delivered dozens of boxes of medicine. "Did you buy them?" Before going out, I spent 1 million buying anti-inflammatory medicine, antibiotics, cold medicine, hemostatic medicine, bruise medicine, alcohol and gauze, and even tetanus vaccines and insulin, all at double the price. In the later stages of the natural disasters, a single cold pill could be exchanged for a spot in an official base. These are all life-saving supplies. I bought them. Please sign for them and just stack them in the living room. The doors and windows are installed. I tested them with a hammer. My hand went numb from the shock, but the door didn't budge. The fireplace is installed too, with top-grade anti-scald steel plates. While stopped at a red light, I transferred 10,000 yuan to Old Son. "What's this money for?" "It's payment for your hard work. It's no big deal. No need to give me this much. Just take it if I'm giving it to you. If you trust me, buy more food with a long shelf life. This typhoon might be pretty fierce. In life, whatever you owe, never owe a favor." As for whether he believed me, that was none of my business. My circumstances were actually pretty good. In my freshman year, my parents died in a car accident, leaving behind real estate and a processing factory, with enough annual income for me to coast through life. But last month, my good brother and my campus belle girlfriend teamed up with my archenemy to set me up. They secretly bribed the factory's key staff, poached major clients, and even forged my signature to sell the factory off at a dirt cheap price. After passing through a few hands, it ended up in theirs. Only then did I see it clearly. This shameless cheating couple had been having an affair for a long time. Just yesterday, they even drove over in a new sports car to deliver their wedding invitation. How do they have the nerve? I picked up a brick and charged at them. If they hadn't run fast, their skulls would definitely have been cracked open. It's also my own fault for trusting people too much. Classmates from a third-rate diploma mill university, thrown into Magic City, couldn't even find decent jobs. Out of camaraderie, I brought more than a dozen of the closest ones into the factory and arranged high-paying positions for them. I asked for nothing in return, but I couldn't withstand this pack of beasts repaying kindness with treachery. In my previous life, I struggled at the very bottom of the survivors and wasted away to skin and bones, while they lived quite comfortably. When we crossed paths, they snatched my last half-esteemed bun, beat me savagely, and with no medicine, I died of illness on a dilapidated road. I shook off these chaotic thoughts. Revenge must be taken, but not now. In a few more days, money will be worthless paper, so I have to spend it quickly. Right now I have the space to stockpile massive amounts of supplies, but if I start looting for free while society is still orderly, I'll end up in the station in less than an hour. Impulse is the devil. When I arrived at the wholesale market, I spent 1 million and directly bought out an entire grain and oil shop. I bought 10 tons of salt alone. There was a reason ancient courts controlled salt. The owner was so happy he couldn't stop smiling and proactively gave me a 5% discount. I made several trips, driving to a secluded corner each time, climbing into the truck compartment and storing the supplies in my space. Then I'd smoke a cigarette and take a detour around the block before circling back for the next load. Right after that, I swept through the vegetable section, meat section, bottled water section, and grain, fruit, vegetable seed section, spending more than 2 million and putting everything into my space. The space has a preservation function, so there's absolutely no need to worry about storage. The food problem is temporarily solved. Next, I need to get weapons and survival gear. It was 17:10 in the afternoon, and time was pressing. While I was busy, Zhongli called. He's my so-called good brother, the one who stole my family property. How's your day been, good brother? Not bad. Ruan and I personally delivered the invitation and nearly got beaten to death by you. If you're not coming to the wedding, you should at least attend tonight's class reunion, right? We're all good brothers. If there's anything upsetting you, let's talk. I was about to refuse when a good idea popped into my head. Sure. I don't want to go out, but I don't mind coming downstairs for a drink. Zhongli was stunned. Huh? I curled my lips in mockery. Good brother, are you scared? The call ended. I could picture the look on his face. This guy fears being looked down on most and can't stand provocation. Even if he's convinced I want us to die together, tonight he'll still bite the bullet and bring a gang of lackeys back to the neighborhood. Coming back to the neighborhood is good. Once they come back, they can forget about leaving. That way I can personally enjoy watching what happens to this pack of beasts in the apocalypse. When food runs short, the sight of dogs eating dogs will definitely be interesting. As for tonight, no fucking way I'm going. Isn't stockpiling more supplies better? When the time comes, I wouldn't feed it to them even if I were feeding dogs. When I arrived at the outdoor goods store, I switched into shopping spree mode. Disaster first aid kits, tents, raincoats and rain boots, camp beds, canteens, sleeping bags, mountaineering picks, climbing ropes, binoculars, radios, power banks, fire axes, fire starters, Swiss Army knives, machetes, multi-function entrenching shovels, waterproof flashlights, extra-large capacity solar charging panels. Everything I could think of, I took it all. 2 sets each of steel-studded crampon shoes and heavy-duty tactical vests with chest protection. 10 boxes of outdoor emergency blankets. In less than half a month, the whole city would lose water and power, so a maximum output noise-reduced household generator was indispensable. 20 assault boats and 20 rubber dinghies as well. After the flood, the water surface will be full of trash, and these things are easy to puncture, so better too many than too few. The owner was startled. Everything else is fine, but this knife is a controlled item. In the apocalypse, violence runs rampant, and self-defense blades are indispensable. I looked at him calmly. You're an expert. You definitely have a way. After hesitating for a moment, the owner relented and went to the back warehouse to get the goods. I then asked if they had snowmobiles. The owner was completely baffled. We're in the South. Where would we get something like that? How about buying online? I sighed inwardly. The fastest online order would arrive tomorrow. And once the natural disasters hit, who knows which highway it'd get stuck on. There was no time, so I settled for roller skates instead. In a frozen world, as long as I can run fast enough, no one will be able to hurt me. Assault boats need diesel. A year later, when Magic City falls and all the survivors flee, fuel consumption will be staggering. But private bulk purchases of gasoline and diesel are prohibited. Fortunately, after the disasters, there will be abandoned vehicles all over the roads. As long as I move fast enough, I'm not worried about not being able to collect enough gasoline. While the owner was loading the goods, I rushed into the military surplus store next door. 50 each of cold weather suits, insulated boots, military overcoats, cotton hats, combat boots, quilts, cotton socks, and cotton gloves. In extreme cold as low as -70 degrees, a single tattered military overcoat can trigger a bloody tragedy that costs over a dozen lives. It's common to see the living use the dead as firewood. Without warm clothing and gear, no one can endure it. With the basic warmth taken care of, I still needed heating tools. At -70 degrees, air conditioners are completely useless. Fireplaces and firewood are what really matter. I navigated to a lumber mill in the suburbs. It was already dark. The typhoon was howling, and rain began to fall. The factory was deserted, and a big yellow dog was tied at the entrance. I took a meaty bone out of my space, and the fellow that had been barking wildly a moment ago immediately started wagging its tail. I climbed over the wall and went in. The open yard was piled high with firewood. I didn't touch the logs or planks. I only collected dozens of tons of scrap wood and sawdust into my space. That amount would be enough for a year, even if it burned around the clock during the extreme cold. Seeing the payment QR code on the wall, I transferred the last 30,000 over, and on my way out, I also swiped 2 chainsaws. In typhoon weather, the real $0 shopping spree was only just beginning. I headed straight for the warehouse district in the suburban industrial park. Sam's, Metro, and Walmart all had warehouses there. My factory used to be in that park, so I knew the layout well. It was 21:10 at night, and driving there would still take 2 hours. A Category 17 typhoon could blow a car right off the road. In weather like this, even if a warehouse were robbed, the police wouldn't be able to respond at all. On the way, I passed a base of fruit greenhouses. The typhoon was getting stronger and stronger, and the air was full of the sweet fragrance of fruit: strawberries, watermelons, grapes, apples. The fruit farmers were rushing in and out trying to salvage the harvest, and whatever they couldn't pick in time could only be blown off by the wind or submerged by water. The strawberry growers were especially desperate. Once the flood came, the low-lying strawberry plants would definitely be inundated, and the seedlings would rot. After everyone had withdrawn far enough, I put a cigarette in my mouth and jumped into the fields, collecting the plants together with the soil into my space. Even if these fruit trees survive the flood, there is no way they can survive the extreme cold of -70 degrees. Rather than let them be destroyed, better to let me have them. I ran a big circle in one breath and collected nearly 20 mu of orchards, leaving only the iron frames blown askew. Delayed by an hour, time was even tighter now. I ran every red light all the way to the warehouse district of the industrial park. In the Category 12 typhoon, the 15-ton cargo truck lurched and swayed like a clumsy snake, ready to tip over at any moment. The church bells rang out, exactly 0 o'clock. The Category 17 super typhoon devastated everything in its path, and the cars by the roadside were blown away like leaves. The natural disasters had arrived, and the whole world officially entered the age of calamity. With a thunderous crash, I slammed through the doors of Walmart's warehouse. The typhoon poured in, and the shelves toppled in rows like dominoes. I pulled down my baseball cap, jumped out of the truck, rolled up my sleeves, and began a frenzied $0 shopping spree. Several people on duty in the monitoring room were completely dumbfounded as the alarm blared wildly. What they saw on the screen was that wherever I went, things vanished instantly. Was there a virus in the system? A hacker's broken in. They simply couldn't believe things could evaporate into thin air. I backed up and got back in the truck, then immediately charged toward the next target, Sam's. The inventory of Walmart alone would be enough to feed me for a lifetime. But before long, glaciers would melt and tectonic plates would collide, shrinking the world's landmass to 1/10,000th of its original size, leaving precious little land that could grow food. No matter how many supplies there are, I can never have too many. Rice, flour, vegetables, and fruit simply can't withstand floods and extreme cold, and it would be such a pity to waste them. Boom. Sam's warehouse door was blasted open. Boom. Costco was right behind it. Boom. Carrefour fell too. The higher-ups at several supermarket chains were all alarmed, but under a Category 17 typhoon the police couldn't respond, so they could only watch helplessly. Boom. Relying on memory, I crashed through the last door and was dumbfounded. How had it turned into a pile of rebar? 2 types, plain and ribbed, bundled at 2 tons each, with over 1,000 bundles stacked there. I'm not doing construction. Then I looked at the warehouse name, Kimchi Country. I instantly felt much better. I took it all. I'll definitely be able to use it in the future. Farther inside there were also stainless steel coils, and at the deepest part was a big beast. The moment I saw it, I almost cried tears of joy. A brand new rugged off-road Kamaz. Driving it through deserts and gravel roads is like child's play, and in the apocalypse it won't fear even the worst road conditions. In my previous life, someone drove one of these and rampaged all the way through. Road robbers could only dodge when they saw it, and any idiot who charged at it was crushed into a meat patty on the spot. Back then, all I could do was watch and envy. The surprises kept coming. Nearly 50 diesel barrels were piled at the rear of the vehicle, 200 liters each, for a total of over 10,000 liters of diesel. At this moment, I sincerely thank little Kimchi. I stowed the entire warehouse's supplies into my space, take the Kimchi's road, and leave the Kimchi with no road to take. In the torrential rain, I glanced at the Hualien sign not far away and turned around directly. Keeping close to the warehouse wall, I drove toward the incubation park 2 kilometers away. I was going there to settle in for the night, and at the same time search for that thing. I heard someone mention it before I was reborn. There was a nanotech underwear company inside, and the fabric they developed could maintain a constant temperature of 25 degrees. That survivor team relied on this stuff to endure the extreme cold. Those who didn't get any froze solid like popsicles. No matter what, I have to get my hands on this fabric. The incubation park is huge, and as for which zone, which building, which floor, which room it's in, I can only search one room at a time. As long as I look carefully, it's not like it can run away. And I can also collect other useful supplies while I'm at it. The iron fence around the incubation park, old as it was, had long since been blown down by the Category 17 Super Typhoon, and Zhou Chen drove the large truck straight to the stairwell entrance. He parked the vehicle sideways to block most of the wind, so he wouldn't be blown away the moment he got out. Zhou Chen didn't start clearing the building right away. There was plenty of time tonight, and after a whole day of work, he was truly hungry. Zhou Chen stayed on the first floor and picked a company with a relatively clean environment. Taking out heavy-duty bolt cutters, he snipped through the chain lock with a few crunches. After going inside, he casually found a table and took an induction cooker, frying pan, steak, and red wine out of his space. He took a piece of butter, put the steak into the hot pan, seared both sides, and drizzled on a little red wine, adding a touch of rosemary, and the delicacy was done. Outside, the typhoon and torrential rain raged, and the window glass rattled nonstop. Zhou Chen ate his steak and drank his red wine, when he suddenly felt something was missing, so he took out a fruit platter. As he ate, he flipped through his phone. The network was still fairly normal for now, and the internet was full of news about this super typhoon. Trees had fallen, bridges had collapsed, luxury cars had been smashed, tornadoes had torn through high-rises. Netizens across the country were shocked by how much more terrifying this typhoon's destructive power was compared with previous years, and countless influencers were live-streaming to comfort their fans. No one would have imagined that this was the beginning of the apocalypse. Zhang Li had called him countless times, and had even pulled him into a WeChat group. The Xingli Company group. Everyone in it was an old acquaintance. Zhang Li's purpose in doing this was naturally to provoke him. There were 99+ messages in the group. Zhou Chen opened it, and saw that they were all videos of Zhang Li and the others having gatherings, barbecuing, drinking, dancing, and generally having a blast. There were quite a lot of people. Chen Chang and the others also brought their respective girlfriends. With the restless music playing, they danced very enthusiastically in close embrace, all wearing ultra-short skirts with black stockings. The first part of the video was filmed in the garden outside, and when the typhoon came, they moved into the living room. Zhang Li had mentioned him. Bro, didn't we agree to come downstairs for a drink? Why are you hiding and not showing up? Are you afraid everyone will laugh at you? Naturally, the lackeys quickly joined in to mock him. Zhang Li had mentioned him several times, clearly really wanting to do it right in front of him, to show off his wonderful life now. Although the means were not very honorable, getting rich overnight would make anyone unable to resist the urge to show off. The corners of Zhou Chen's mouth lifted, and he sent a voice message over. Sorry, everyone. I really did want to have a drink with you earlier, but something came up and I had to go out. Zhang Li from Sakura Residential Complex had finally gotten a message from Zhou Chen. He straightened up and hurriedly called everyone to look at their phones, quickly replying in the group chat. Yo, what a coincidence. What important matter made you cancel our gathering at the last minute? It was obvious from those words that Zhou Chen was deliberately avoiding meeting everyone. Chen Chang and the others immediately followed up. Exactly. Everyone hasn't seen you in a long time and really missed you. Who would have thought you'd stand us up? Zhou Chen, there's really no need to be like this. We're all good friends. Whether there's something going on or not, we should get together and keep in touch. Yeah, everyone knows you've been in a bad mood lately. If you're unhappy, you should say it out loud. We're your best listeners. And no one will laugh at you. Hurry the hell down here. Everyone's waiting for you. What? Do you want us to carry a grand sedan chair up there to invite you down? There's nothing a drinking session can't fix. Boss Zhou, you have to believe that there will be bread, and there will also be love. Huh? Zhou Chen pointed his phone camera at the window and recorded a video. Zhongli looked surprised. You really aren't at home? Zhou Chen said in a lazy tone. Could that be fake? The factory is gone, the business has failed, so I've got to find some other business to do. So here I am, hitting it off, so while talking with a friend that by the time we were almost done discussing things, the typhoon had arrived, and I could only wait until tomorrow to go home. He laughed. Don't leave, you guys. You must wait for me to come back and have a drink. Don't worry, it really is just drinking. I won't do anything to you, so there's no need to be afraid of me, haha. A level 17 super typhoon can't keep blowing forever. And by tomorrow morning it will drop to force 5 or 6. Traveling for a short time won't be a problem, but the torrential rain will continue for several more days. It just depends on how many residents can seize this opportunity. With that provocation from Zhou Chen, he was certain Zhongli would stay. At the same time, he was certain this group wouldn't go out in the rain to stock up on food. A bunch of people who liked getting something for nothing. Once the barbecue was eaten up, there would still be fruit and drinks, enough to last 2 meals. By the time they reacted, the floodwaters would be visibly rising and would soon submerge the entire first floor, leaving this bunch without even a place to stay. After this group kept shirking responsibility, and the floodwaters submerged the second floor, and after they kept dragging their feet before finally deciding which few people to send out to look for food, the extreme cold quietly arrived. The extreme cold of -70 degrees was only the beginning of these beasts' suffering. One chain after another was violently cut apart with bolt cutters. Zhou Chen swept from the first floor to the third floor in one go. There actually weren't many useful supplies, though he did collect quite a few pens, paper, and printers that were 90% new. But he was very seriously clearing out the building. Even wooden desks, chairs, and stools were put into his space, to be used as firewood later. He collected several hundred packages of canned and bagged tea. Although they were all ordinary quality commonly found in supermarkets, they were still good stuff in the apocalypse. Chinese tea culture has been passed down for thousands of years. It is not only loved by older people, but also deeply loved by young people. Chinese people have a profound love for tea. A cup of clear tea can ease homesickness. The third floor was almost entirely occupied by e-commerce companies, and the computer specs were all pretty average. After picking through them, he collected more than 100 units. The window glass in many studios had been shattered by the typhoon. Half the items had been sucked away by the wind, and the other half had been soaked by the rain. Scraps of paper were flying all over the corridor. Zhou Chen moved quickly, searching floor by floor, room by room. After breaking the locks, all it took was a glance to tell whether there were any useful supplies. He took the useful ones and couldn't be bothered to look twice at the useless ones. He opened the various delivery boxes one by one to inspect them and ended up with a pile of clothes, pants, shoes, shampoo, laundry detergent, and more. He even unpacked a folding bicycle. By the time he reached the 4th floor, beneath the desk of one cubicle, he found 2 enormous delivery boxes. When he opened them, they turned out to be packed full of raincoats. The brand was a well-known one. There were 10 in a box and 100 boxes in a carton. Zhou Chen instinctively glanced at the employee badge on the workstation. Classmate Zhou Chen, do you have 4 kidneys? Buying 2,000 raincoats in one go. Can you even use them all in this lifetime? Aren't you afraid they'll expire? I don't think you're a bear, you're a tiger. And those bumps on the outer packaging. You're into some pretty wild stuff. But this thing really is good stuff. In troubled times, a woman is worth 3 pecks of rice. In prosperous times, a woman is worth a fortune. In any dynasty, women's status in troubled times is extremely low, becoming tools for venting desire, whether willingly or under coercion. Women in the apocalypse are even more tragic. They're not even worth 3 pecks of rice, a loaf of bread, a pack of instant noodles, a handful of stale rice. With civilization lost and morality collapsed, everywhere is filled with bloodshed and violence. The evil in human nature is magnified to the fullest, and some violent groups simply do not treat women as human, using all kinds of means to keep them under control and turning them into tools for trading supplies every day. When they are injured or sick, they receive not the slightest treatment, and even in the second before their last breath, they are still being forced to work. Under such circumstances, certain diseases spread from 1 to 10, from 10 to 100. Many male survivors have also realized this. Talk like to die beneath a peony flower is to die as a romantic ghost is all bullshit. It may feel good to indulge for a moment, but but staying alive is more important than anything. On top of that, far too many humans have died in the natural disasters, creating an extreme shortage of doctors and medical equipment. Survivors are already struggling just to stay alive, so who would dare gamble with their life on having children? But humans are emotional creatures after all. The harder life becomes, the more they long for comfort in their hearts. Naturally, the value of raincoats rose accordingly. Zhou Chen unceremoniously stored them in his space and turned to continue sweeping the building. In a studio near the end of the 5th floor, the moment he forced the door open, several figures startled Zhou Chen. Someone. Zhou Chen instinctively raised the bolt cutters in his hand, wanting to strike first. It was a psychological shadow left over from his previous life. He quickly turned on the light and saw that they were just several plastic mannequins. This was a garment company. A few sewing machines and several tables took up most of the space, with several bolts of fabric piled on the tables and 2 computers placed in the corner. Several plastic mannequins were arranged by the window. One of the mannequins was wearing a thin, light gray set of thermal underwear. Zhou Chen stepped back to the doorway and looked up at the door sign. Huaxin Constant Temperature High-Tech Company. Constant temperature clothing? Incubation park zones A to F spanned 5 kilometers, with 100 buildings in each zone. Each building 5 stories tall, and each floor containing dozens of rooms. He had just casually entered one building, and it led him to the legendary cold-resistant treasure? Could this be the buff of a reborn person? Zhou Chen rushed over excitedly and reached out to touch the underwear fabric on the mannequin. Light, soft, and skin-friendly. The feel of these 3 qualities fused into one was indescribably comfortable. Zhou Chen couldn't wait to try it on. The moment it touched his skin, it felt icy cool. Wasn't this supposed to be a cold-resistant miracle? Why did it feel a bit cool instead? It was now mid-August. Even with the typhoon raging outside, the temperature was still around 35 degrees, and it still felt a bit stuffy and hot. But in just a few seconds, that hot, stuffy feeling disappeared, as if his whole body were in an air-conditioned room at 28 degrees, cool and incredibly comfortable. So this fabric really could maintain a constant temperature? Not just a cold-resistant miracle, but a heat-resistant miracle too? It was said that the owner of this company was a researcher himself, and his dream was that one day the results of his painstaking research could be worn by astronauts. What a pity. If the apocalypse hadn't arrived, this man would have become famous. Zhou Chen was overjoyed. He changed back into his own clothes and stored the set of constant temperature clothing in his space, like a treasure. When he threw himself into collecting the fabric, he discovered that among these several bolts of fabric, only one had the same feel as the constant temperature clothing. The others felt merely similar, but were definitely different. In other words, the other bolts were very likely just research samples or failed products. Zhou Chen wasn't too disappointed. After all, he was alone, and having one set of constant temperature clothing already satisfied him greatly. Moreover, the fabric came in full bolts, generally 20, 30 meters long, so making several more sets would be no problem at all. The only problem was that he didn't know how to make clothes. But there were plenty of people who knew this craft. When he got the chance, he could find someone to make them and use food as payment. Plenty of people would scramble for the job. Thinking of this, Zhou Chen directly emptied out the entire workshop, not even leaving behind a single needle. Dawn was approaching. The super typhoon was gradually weakening, but the merciless torrential rain was growing even heavier, as if determined to drown the entire world in its ferocious onslaught. With the help of the faint dawn light, Zhou Chen felt as if he had crossed into another world, a shattered wasteland. 5 kilometers away, there had originally been 2 skyscrapers standing opposite each other, echoing one another from afar. Now, the skyscraper on the left looked as if a giant had smashed off a section with a hammer. Its upper structure was nowhere to be seen, leaving only the lower structure standing in the wind and rain. As for the skyscraper on the right, a bus had pierced through its middle, with only half of the rear and left sticking out. The old factory buildings in the industrial area had all been reduced to ruins, and all the machinery had been submerged by the floodwaters. One corpse after another floated in the moving floodwaters, men and women, old and young, blocked by fallen tree trunks until they eventually formed a horrifying pile of bodies. Help! A man lay among the ruins, his legs twisted at a bizarre angle, his chest pierced through by rebar from a broken wall, while his blood was constantly washed away by the pouring rain. He struggled in agony, cried out twice, and then went still. Zhou Chen clenched his fists. Tragedies like this would play out every day? At 12 noon. At this time, the super typhoon had dropped to category 5 or 6. The whole world was filled only with the heavy sound of rain, and the dark sky seemed about to collapse. The residents' group chat of Sakura Residential Complex had been active all morning. Everyone was shocked by the terrifying destructive power of this typhoon. They had thought it would be like previous years. After the typhoon passed, at most there would be minor incidents like flooded roads and collapsed billboards. But when they woke up, it was as if the world had changed. This is too terrifying, isn't it? Is this the end of the world? The windows in my home rattled all night. I didn't sleep a wink. Listen, the sound of ambulances hasn't stopped for the past half hour. I heard a lot of people died. Check online. So many buildings across the country have collapsed, and those were high-rises. Can you believe it? I heard my company's building collapsed too. Does that mean I don't have to go to work? The typhoon has weakened. Shouldn't we go out and grab supplies? The rain is even heavier than last night. Even the greenbelt is flooded. I think we better not go out. True. Who knows what the road conditions are really like? What if a manhole cover is loose and you step on it and go straight to your own funeral? Really? Then I want to sit at the kids' table. Huh? I'm going out. I've been eating at funeral banquets these past few days, and there's not even a single scallion left at home. Holy crap. Someone reposted a moment's post. Someone uploaded a video. There are several corpses floating in the river. Huh. They really are corpses. My God, that's terrifying. At this point, the neighborhood committee lady, as the group owner, stepped in. Any information online that has not been officially confirmed is a rumor, and spreading it carries legal responsibility. We are all highly educated people, so I don't need to say much about something this basic, right? I hereby warn all homeowners. If anyone randomly spreads rumors and causes public panic, then don't blame me for not showing mercy. When the time comes, I'll bring the police straight to your door to arrest you. As soon as the neighborhood committee lady sent this message, the group immediately fell silent. Everyone, listen to me. Although the super typhoon has passed, there's still torrential rain outside. If you go out now and an accident happens, you'll just be causing trouble for the country. Stay at home obediently, and let's wait a few hours to see the situation. What if in a few hours the floodwater gets even deeper? How are we supposed to go out then? The neighborhood committee lady was very unhappy that someone contradicted her, and her tone became extremely stern. If the flood really gets so bad that ordinary people can't go out, then that actually makes things easier for you. The authorities will definitely assign staff to distribute supplies to the people, and they will definitely be delivered to the homeowners in every residential community. Stay calm. We must trust in the strength of the organization. If there are any new developments, I will notify everyone immediately. The lady's words reassured the homeowners quite a bit. Although the neighborhood committee is only a community job, it is, after all, recognized by the organization, so it naturally carries a certain official aura, which gives her words and actions a measure of authority. On top of that, people are naturally lazy and like to take advantage. No need to go out yourself. No need to spend your own money. Free state provisions delivered right to your door. A lot of people thought this was a kind of enjoyment. Zhou Chen sneered. This old lady was really going to get people killed. What she said had a certain logic to it, but timing matters. Would the apocalypse come out and tell everyone that it had arrived to destroy the earth? This torrential rain would continue for several days. In just a few more hours, seawater would surge back into the city, and the flood would instantly submerge the second floor. With floodwaters 7 or 8 meters deep, ordinary people wouldn't be able to get out even if they wanted to. Going out now is the residents' last chance to stock up on supplies. In fact, long lines have already formed outside many supermarkets, and quite a few malls have already been picked clean. If you go out now, you can still grab at least some supplies. It was the same in the previous life. The neighborhood committee lady, in her self-righteousness, stopped residents from going out to stock up on supplies, ultimately leading to countless tragedies. The first victims were the elderly living alone and men and women living by themselves. Unable to endure it any longer, Zhou Chen sent a voice message. This super typhoon has reached a shocking Category 17. There are no small number of disaster victims, and the extent of the damage is beyond imagination. The authorities are already too overwhelmed to cope. Who has time to deliver supplies to you? If you don't have supplies at home, hurry up and go out. The neighborhood committee lady immediately called out Zhou Chen by name. 2301. Oh my, so you're the only one who knows so much. Didn't you hear what I just said? Stop taking the lead and stirring up trouble here. Are you going to starve to death if you miss one meal? Zhou Chen started cursing directly. Stirring up trouble my ass. You're stopping everyone from going out to grab supplies. If someone starves to death, are you going to take responsibility? You little brat, watch your mouth. What do you mean starve to death? What era do you think this is that people would still starve to death? Are you questioning our country's strength? Or are you questioning our community's ability to work? I even have reason to suspect. You are deliberately stoking panic among the residents and intentionally inciting social unrest. Old hag, let me ask you this. If people starve to death next, will you take full responsibility? So many lives. Can you really bear that responsibility? The two of them started arguing directly in the group chat, and the other homeowners didn't dare make a sound. Being called an old hag by the brat. The neighborhood committee lady's face turned green with rage. Zhou Chen, right? I'll remember this for now, and once the floodwaters recede, I'll definitely report you and have you charged with disrupting public order. Zhou Chen shot back on the spot. Don't wait for the flood to recede. If you've got the guts, report me right now. I'll be waiting. He took a photo of the pile of corpses and threw it into the group chat. Priorities matter. The entire industrial park is already like this. Do you really think the authorities still have spare hands to deliver supplies to you? People need to know how to save themselves, got it? Believe it or not, just don't come crying later. The next second, he was kicked out of the homeowners group chat. Not long after, old son called him. Xiaozhou, where did that photo of yours come from? Just taken. The photo is real. You're in the suburbs right now, right? Actually, there were already lots of similar videos online this morning, but in less than half an hour, you couldn't find them anymore. Zhou Chen thought that was perfectly normal. The authorities couldn't possibly have realized this was the start of the apocalypse either. To ensure social stability, they would naturally step in to delete videos like that. And once all media channels received the order, the entire backend system would go into strict operation, with all kinds of restrictions beyond imagination. Even if you had 100 videos in your hands, don't even think about posting a single one online. Old son sighed. So that's what it was. Earlier, as soon as the typhoon started to weaken, all the ambulances and fire trucks were dispatched. Luckily, the buildings in the inner ring are relatively concentrated, so the situation is much better than in the suburbs. Just after Zhou Chen hung up, quite a few people in the 21 #homeowners group mentioned him. Each and every one of them was indignant. Hey, top floor guy, what the hell kind of trash pictures are you randomly posting? My son was just playing on the phone and got scared by you into bawling his eyes out. My wife is already 8 months pregnant, and your picture startled her so badly out of nowhere that she almost fell. And now she's been saying her stomach hurts. If anything happens to my wife or child, can you afford to pay for it? Forget pregnant women and children. Even a grown man in his 30s like me got startled. Are you sick or what? You just randomly found that picture somewhere online, right? Aren't you afraid of the authorities coming after you? Damn, this society has gone completely mad. Over the tiniest thing, a bunch of monsters and freaks always come crawling out. Trash like this is actually right beside me. If you ask me, people like this should be arrested and shot on the spot. As the homeowner on the first floor of 21 #, Zhongli naturally wouldn't miss any chance to trample on Zhou Chen. Zhou Chen, I know you've been under a lot of stress lately, but deliberately creating panic is where you're wrong. What coastal city doesn't get 1 or 2 typhoons a year? Houses collapsing happens, and a few deaths happen too, but the photo you posted is way too exaggerated. Even a funeral home couldn't come up with that many corpses. You can't just because your own life is going badly start acting like you want revenge on society, scaring everyone so everyone else has to live badly too. Zhou Chen replied with only one sentence. Heh, idiot. No matter how heavy the rain is, it can't stop the official rescue teams. Holding a pair of binoculars, Zhou Chen saw from afar the figures of police officers, firefighters, and medical personnel. But the roads were blocked and vehicles couldn't pass, so all of them, dressed uniformly in orange life jackets, were struggling forward through the floodwaters hand in hand. Their hearts were heavy with grief, and tears welled up in their eyes. Even before setting out, they had already received aerial photos and thought they were mentally prepared, but the miserable scene before them was still something they couldn't face. Buildings that collapse can be rebuilt, equipment that is damaged can be remade, but overnight, tens of thousands of lives are gone, truly gone. Fuck. Aishiba. Baka. A group of foreigners of all shapes and sizes cautiously followed behind the police, cursing nonstop. Oh, shift. We're all respectable people who came out of elite classes. Why should we be soaking in this filthy floodwater? Oh no, these corpses are so disgusting. And there are so many rats on the corpses. Oh no, why didn't you hold on to me tightly? You made me swallow a mouthful of water that had soaked corpses. They were the heads of the Xia Kingdom region for several major imported supermarket chains. There had been an anomaly at the warehouse last night, and the alarm had been sounding all night. This morning they received news that the warehouse gates were damaged, and that all the supplies might have been blown away by the typhoon. They didn't want to come, but they had no choice. They lived very glamorously in the Xia Kingdom, with people fawning over them every day, but to headquarters. They were just employees. Now their annual salaries of several million were as good as gone. Zhou Chen ate a steak and drank a glass of freshly squeezed juice. He found a motorcycle in the ruins and headed home. He had traveled this road for more than 10 years. Even without road signs, even with the roads destroyed, he could find home with his eyes closed. Along the way, he didn't forget to collect supplies whenever he could. The dark, overcast sky and the torrential rain were the best cover. A delivery truck with only the cargo compartment left, collect. An overturned water truck, collect. A big yellow ox mooing in the floodwaters, collect. Several pigs swimming by, collect. People emerged from the ruins. 1, 2, 3. Some walking alone, some supporting each other. This area was close to the inner ring, with buildings packed closely together. Only a small number of old buildings had been destroyed by the super typhoon. These people had all suffered injuries to varying degrees, their faces blank with confusion in the pouring rain. Human sorrow is shared, and the horrifying scene before them brought many to tears. Zhou Chen felt nothing about it, because he knew that when people are driven into desperate straits, their hearts turn dark. The people shedding tears for the dead at this moment might one day kill for a piece of bread. Helicopters flew past overhead one after another. Some flew into the distance, while others descended lower and lower to land nearby. A convoy of fire engines appeared, charging through recklessly and forcibly, blazing open a passage with the fiercest momentum. Someone in the team shouted loudly through a megaphone, repeatedly reminding residents to return home and not to go out rashly. The low-floor homes submerged by floodwater, as well as residents who were seriously injured, would be taken away at the first opportunity for centralized shelter and careful treatment. Zhou Chen avoided the rescue team and, relying on his memory, found a nearby gas station. His luck was incredible, and he actually discovered a semi-tanker truck. Under the impact of the super typhoon, the tanker had smashed through a shop's glass, with most of the vehicle lodged inside, and only a 1-foot section of the rear exposed outside. Zhou Chen rushed over excitedly and carefully inspected the vehicle, finding no damage or fuel leakage. The fuel load did not disappoint him either, a full tank of 30 tons. The apocalypse tormented humanity in ever-changing ways. Even the earliest official survivor bases were still mercilessly destroyed by the endless natural disasters. In order to survive, the survivors were forced to migrate again and again. In his previous life, Zhou Chen was like the vast majority of survivors, traveling on foot through different provinces. Just to find a temporary place to stay, he had walked his feet to pieces. Egg-sized blisters were pierced, and then grew back, and were pierced again, until the blisters turned into blood blisters, then sores that oozed pus. And he even lost a toe. Even more survivors collapsed on the road and never got up again. With this fuel, if he could find a few more high-performance vehicles, his chances of survival would increase. Whenever he recalled his experiences surviving the apocalypse in his previous life, he felt a chill of horror in his heart. Putting away the fuel tanker, he took 4 plastic water storage tanks out of his space and siphoned all the fuel from the stock dry. Unfortunately, the stock here was already running low, otherwise this fuel tanker wouldn't have appeared. But that was no big deal. Zhou Chen got back on his motorcycle and headed for the next gas station. Along the way, he drained the fuel tanks of every vehicle, no matter the size. Off-road vehicles and trucks of different brands, as long as they weren't too badly damaged, were all stored in his space. When passing through an area of deep water, a few faint barks came through the sound of the rain. The farther Zhou Chen went, the clearer and louder the barking became. Woof, woof. A big yellow dog was clinging to a tree trunk, barking nonstop at Zhou Chen. Looking closely, there was an iron chain tied around the big yellow dog's neck, and the other end of the chain was wrapped around a fork in the tree. Zhou Chen would not sympathize with the dog. In his previous life, he had fought wild dogs for food several times. In the apocalypse, wild dogs were extremely vicious and even ate human flesh. Once, he had almost been bitten to death alive. Watching Zhou Chen leave without even turning his head, the big yellow dog let out a mournful whimper. Then it froze in surprise. It stared eagerly at the human who had gone only to return. One man and one dog locked eyes. Zhou Chen stroked his chin and began to think seriously. If he wanted that bunch of beasts to realize they were living worse than a dog, how could there not be a dog as the most direct comparison? If you dare bite, I'll stew you. Hearing the word stew, the big yellow dog felt an inexplicable sense of fear and immediately tried to flee for its life. The moment it let go of the tree trunk, it was swept away by the flood, but the next second the chain caught on the tree fork yanked it back. Zhou Chen slapped the dog's snout hard, nearly knocking the big yellow dog out cold. The big yellow dog instinctively bared its teeth and immediately got a second slap, then a third hard slap. A child won't amount to anything without being disciplined, and a dog won't listen without being beaten. If a child doesn't amount to anything, I get angry. If a dog doesn't listen, I eat meat. The big yellow dog was stunned from the beating, and its rear end soaked in the floodwater immediately tucked in its tail. Seeing that it had been dealt with enough, Zhou Chen removed the chain tangled into a ball, grabbed the dog by the neck, and threw it onto the motorcycle. From now on, I'll call you Huang. The big yellow dog crouched on the fuel tank, trembling all over. It wanted several times to jump into the water and run, but didn't have the nerve. A single cough from Zhou Chen was enough to scare it into shrinking its neck. Once they entered the inner ring, the road immediately became clear. In the floodwaters, quite a few people were carrying home the supplies they had rushed to buy. My brand new car I just bought yesterday hasn't even been insured yet. A BMW by the roadside had been flattened by a huge rock, and the female owner was so anxious she stamped her feet. Bang! A figure fell from the sky and smashed onto an SUV, bleeding from the nose and mouth and dying on the spot. The people around screamed in terror. Before the crowd could react, another person fell from a height, splashing up water, and blood instantly spread out. An old woman pushed into the crowd, wailing in grief. Son, how could you be so foolish? So what if the factory is gone? Why were you so unable to think it through? How are your father and I supposed to go on living? Beneath the curtain of rain, the wall of Sakura residential complex had collapsed, and a section of the iron fence had fallen over. The standing water on the ground was 1.5 meters deep, rushing noisily toward the underground parking garage. The cars soaked in the floodwaters inside the complex were driven by the current into one another, and in the end became a chaotic jam at the entrance. The residents staying at home could only watch helplessly as their beloved cars were destroyed. Zhou Chen entered the complex, his motorcycle pushing through the water all the way. Holy shit! Someone shouted from above. Immediately afterward, countless residents ran from their living rooms to their balconies to look out, their expressions even a little excited. Hero. Awesome. Bro, what's the situation like outside? Zhou Chen arrived at Building 21 and specifically took a look at Zhang Li's first-floor home. The small garden was submerged by the murky floodwater, with only the crowns of 2 small trees showing above the surface, and household trash floating on the water, as well as household appliances. The house was no longer habitable, and Zhang Li and the others were most likely crowded in the second-floor corridor waiting for rescue. The elevator couldn't be used, so he could only take the stairs. Zhou Chen had just climbed to the second floor when he saw more than 20 men and women sitting all over the steps. Zhou Chen. Chen Chang looked shocked. Several old classmates sitting next to him also looked shocked. They hadn't expected that with the floodwater this deep, Zhou Chen would actually be able to come back. The next second, footsteps rang out. Zhang Li came rushing over from the direction of the elevator with several women. When he saw clearly that it was Zhou Chen, he immediately demanded, "Why didn't you answer when I called you? Why didn't you reply to the messages I sent you?" He pointed around in a circle and said angrily, "Other than Chen Chang and the others' girlfriends who don't know you well, count everyone here one by one. Ask them who didn't call or message you." Zhou Chen put both hands in his pockets. "Oh, Su Ruan called too." Zhang Li choked for a moment. Su Ruan, hiding behind him, didn't dare meet Zhou Chen's gaze and guiltily turned her head to the side. The way Zhou Chen looked at Su Ruan made Zhang Li extremely irritated. Clearly he was the one who had cuckolded Zhou Chen, so why did it suddenly feel like he was the one about to be cuckolded? Zhang Li stepped forward, wanting to block Zhou Chen's line of sight, but Zhou Chen was a whole head taller than him, so his gaze easily passed over the top of his head and landed on his woman. Zhang Li felt like a clown. Without making it obvious, he took a step back and firmly shielded Su Ruan behind him. "I'm talking to you about the phone calls. Why are you bringing up Ruan?" Zhang Li deliberately called out the name Ruan with affected tenderness and looked at Zhou Chen smugly. "The goddess you never got to sleep with ended up with me in all kinds of positions. Doesn't that make you feel awful? So mad, huh?" Zhou Chen lowered his eyes and looked at him disdainfully. "If you call me, I have to answer?" Zhang Li flared up the moment he heard that. "If it weren't for you, how could I possibly have come back? Now the house is flooded. What does your flooded house have to do with me? The house may have nothing to do with you, but the car does, right? That car worth over $1 million is now soaked in water." The more Zhang Li thought about it, the angrier he got. The flooded house was nothing much. At worst, he could just buy furniture and appliances again. But the sports car he'd only gotten a month ago, before he'd even finished showing it off, had been soaked in floodwater for a whole day, and had even been swept by the flood into the underground parking garage. Even if they got it out, it would be totaled. Thinking about the car, Su Wanruan, standing in the corner, felt a sharp pang and shot Zhou Chen a resentful glance. Zhou Chen let out a snort of laughter and said, "It was all bought with my money. I don't even feel bad about it. So what are you feeling bad for?" Hearing this, Zhang Li and Su Wanruan both froze on the spot, unable to say a word for a long while. They hadn't expected Zhou Chen to lay it all out so directly. Qin Chang and the others' cars had also been flooded, and they were anxious and upset now too, even though they had car insurance. With flooded cars filling the streets right now, even the insurance company's boss would have to jump off a building. "Zhou Chen, what about our cars then?" "Yeah, if you hadn't wanted to have a drink with us, would we have driven over here?" "Exactly. The ground where my rental place is much higher than here. No matter how hard it rained, the water wouldn't have gone past the tires. We don't care about the issue between you and President Zhang, but what do you have to say about all our cars?" Zhou Chen turned his head and immediately cursed them out. "Are you sick in the head? Was I the one who called each and every one of you here for a get-together? Do you have call records or message records? Show them to me. Whoever called you here, go find them." Qin Chang and the others were so angry their faces and necks turned red, and they couldn't help looking toward Zhang Li. But they were all on Zhang Li's boat and would still have to keep relying on him in the future. They dared not offend him, so they could only vent their resentment on Zhou Chen. When Zhang Li saw everyone staring at him, anger immediately flared up in his heart. Damn it, they're all a pack of shit-eating dogs. Smelling the stink of shit, every one of them desperately crowded around him, and the moment there was the slightest loss, they started blaming him. They didn't stop to think that, if not for him coming up with ideas time and again over the past few years, with a bunch of useless trash like you, could your salaries have risen from a few thousand to 20,000? If not for his guts and willingness to go all out, could each of you have gotten over 100,000 to buy cars? Seeing the hostility in Zhang Li's eyes, Qin Chang and the others all lowered their heads. Zhang Li clenched his fists and shouted at Zhou Chen, "Zhou Chen, let's not talk about the cars for now. If you hadn't said you didn't want to go out, but were willing to come downstairs for a drink, would I have canceled the restaurant we'd booked long ago and called everyone to come all the way here together? Right now, no one even has a place to rest, and there isn't even a sip of water to drink. Shouldn't you find somewhere for everyone?" Zhou Chen raised an eyebrow. "Not talk about it for now. Should?" Zhang Li ground his teeth and waved his hand sharply. "Fine, the car matter has nothing to do with you. We'll take the loss ourselves." Hearing this, Qin Chang and the others felt resentful again. "The car matter has nothing to do with Zhou Chen. Do you get to decide that? Is that your call to make? Then, Zhang Li, are you going to compensate us with a brand new car? Damn it. You and Su Wanruan, that adulterous pair, swallowed up Zhou Chen's factory, so of course you have money on hand. What about us? We were still hoping to keep pestering Zhou Chen into paying us some compensation." But at that moment, Zhang Li's face was full of warning. Qin Chang and the others could only swallow all their dissatisfaction. Zhang Li shot Qin Chang and the others a fierce glare, then looked at Zhou Chen impatiently. "Hurry up and take us to your home. We're tired and hungry now. We'll leave after the floodwaters recede." Zhou Chen punched Zhang Li in the face. "So you fucking know it's my home, not yours, and you think you can go just because you want to?" The punch was not light. Zhang Li staggered and slammed into the corner of the wall. He instinctively covered his face, and nosebleed flowed through his fingers. Everyone was startled and stared at Zhou Chen in shock. Why did he suddenly start hitting people? All along, Zhou Chen had given them the impression of being a very accommodating and gentle person. Especially when he smiled, his eyes were bright and shining, and his smile was like the sun in winter. They had never seen him lose his temper. Otherwise, they wouldn't have thought he was easy to bully and demanded raises every year, sometimes twice a year, even 3 times a year. This was the first time they had seen Zhou Chen lose his temper, and the first time they had seen him use violence. It seemed he really had been pushed to the limit. Fair enough, his best brother and the goddess of his dreams had conspired to seize his factory. If this had happened to them, they would have shown up at the door that very day with a cleaver in one hand and sulfuric acid in the other. There was no way they could have endured it until today. Su Wanruan glanced disdainfully at the bedraggled Zhang Li, but still walked over to support him, then turned and looked at Zhou Chen reproachfully. "Zhou Chen, you've gone too far. Can't you just talk things out properly? Did you have to get physical?" Zhou Chen let out a cold laugh. "Who the hell do you think you are, acting like you have the right to lecture me? Who here doesn't know what kind of thing you are? If I were you, I wouldn't even have the nerve to show my face in public." Su Wanruan's expression changed. Zhang Li cared a lot about his face. and used more skincare products on it than most women. He stared at the blood on his hand and cursed furiously. Zhou Chen, you fucking brought this on yourself. Get him. Chen Chong and the others came to their senses and closed in on Zhou Chen. A switchblade slipped out from Zhou Chen's right sleeve. His thumb pressed the button, and the blade sprang out. Clang. The sharp blade glinted with a grim, icy light under the hallway lamp. Zhou Chen narrowed his eyes halfway, and the chilling killing intent was enough to make one shudder. Holy shit. Chen Chong and the others at the very front were so scared they turned and ran for their lives up the stairs. The women were terrified, their faces drained of color as they screamed and scattered in all directions. Zhang Li's eyes widened, and he instinctively tried to squeeze his whole body into the corner. You, what are you trying to do? Zhou Chen raised the switchblade, his eyes sharp. Didn't you want to make a move? Come on, I'd also really like to know whether this knife of mine can actually stab someone to death. Zhou Chen, calm down. Zhang Li's legs trembled, and he suddenly felt the urge to pee. Put the knife away. I was just joking just now. You go, we definitely won't stop you. Zhou Chen had never really planned to make a move. For that brief moment, just now, he really had wanted to stab every one of these beasts to death right here. With 3 years of survival experience in the apocalypse, he still had that much ruthlessness. But what he wanted even more was to coldly watch this pack of beasts turn on each other like dogs, leaving everyone bloodied. Suspecting each other, tearing each other apart, and stabbing each other in the back over a little bit of supplies. That was much more fun. Zhou Chen kicked the big yellow dog. This mutt had had its tail tucked between its legs the whole time, trembling as it hid behind him, not even daring to let out a bark. Needs a beating. Coward. Zhang Li and the others looked livid, all feeling that Zhou Chen wasn't cursing the dog, but cursing them. But he had a knife in his hand. Who would be stupid enough to rush up and fight him? Zhou Chen lifted his foot and walked up the stairs. As he passed Chen Chong and the other old classmates, each of them pressed their bodies tightly against the wall, their eyes fixed firmly on the knife, afraid that Zhou Chen would stab them the next second. After walking all the way to the corner, Zhou Chen suddenly turned around and looked down at everyone from above. Chen Chong and the others grabbed their girlfriends and hurried down the stairs. More than 20 men and women crowded together in a chaotic mass. Everyone was unable to stop their pounding fear as they looked up at Zhou Chen. Zhou Chen glanced at Su Wanwan, then glanced at the other 2 female classmates, as well as Chen Chong's and the others' girlfriends. The corner of his mouth lifted. Remember, my place only lets women stay the night. You motherf. Realizing the knife in Zhou Chen's hand, Zhang Li immediately clamped a hand over his mouth and forcibly swallowed the harsh words that were about to come out. Only after Zhou Chen's footsteps had faded into the distance did these people dare to start cursing loudly. Fuck. Who the hell does he think he is? We shouldn't have let him go just now. I don't believe he'd really dare kill someone. Next time we run into him, we'll make him pay. Then we'll beat him till he howls like a dog and crawls under our crotches. What's he so cocky for? Does he still think he's President Zhou from before? He's nothing at all. A bunch of men talked big for quite a while, venting the anger in their hearts, but the actual problem still hadn't been solved. A short-haired girl asked softly, "What do we do now?" Zhang Li frowned. "Just hang in there a little longer. If the heavy rain still doesn't stop after dark, a rescue team will definitely come to pick people up. With so many residents on the lower floors affected by the disaster, I don't believe the authorities will just ignore it." Chen Chong's girlfriend quietly pressed her legs together and said in a low voice, "We've been asking the residents on the 2nd floor to let us use their toilets all day today, and asking them for water to drink. There are so many of us, and they were already getting annoyed just now." Since she was Chen Chong's girlfriend, Zhang Li was still fairly patient. "Then go to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floors. And if you speak politely, you probably won't be refused." From the crowd, a skinny guy suggested, "How about we leave here first? My place and Cece's rental apartment are both on the upper floors. Why don't we all squeeze in there together?" Just as everyone began to consider it, Zhang Li started cursing right away. "Are you fucking stupid? How many people here even know how to swim? If I were willing to ruin this Armani outfit, would I still go to your crappy place? Staying at a 5-star hotel would be better than your doghouse, right?" The skinny guy's face burned hot, feeling as though he'd been slapped hard in front of everyone. He retreated to the back of the crowd and shot Zhang Li a vicious glare. The dozen or so women present also disagreed. "The water is so filthy, I'm not swimming out in it." "Exactly. I only bought this dress yesterday, and it cost 1,000 yuan. My shoes cost 2,000 yuan, and the sales clerk said they can't get wet. I'm on my period. What if I get an infection from getting into the water? It's not that I'm afraid of getting dirty, I just can't swim. The atmosphere gradually grew heavy. Cece, whom the skinny monkey had mentioned, stepped forward. How about this? We pick a few men who can swim and have them swim out to find a rescue team, or rent a rubber boat. Rent a coach bus. Anyway, let's get everyone out first. We can't just stay in the stairwell forever. After counting and recounting, there were only 3 men present who could swim. Zhang Li, the skinny monkey, and another guy named Luo Feng. But Zhang Li couldn't bear to ruin his Armani outfit, and the skinny monkey had gotten into a fight a few days ago and still had one arm in a sling around his neck. And that guy named Luo Feng had his hemorrhoids removed just last week. Shin Chang and his girlfriend actually could swim, but earlier they had seen a post on Moments where someone walking in the flood suddenly sank. They must have fallen into a sewer and died on the spot. The two of them were too calculating to gamble with their lives, so with a glance at each other, they pretended they couldn't swim. Seeing the situation, everyone knew it was another waste of breath. Zhou Chen returned home and immediately began checking all the bulletproof glass and the steel front door welded with 3-door bolts. The money was well spent, especially on this front door. Once the 3-door bolts were secured, people outside couldn't smash it open even with hammers. Dozens of large cardboard boxes were piled up in the living room. And after checking them one by one, he confirmed that all the medicines he needed were there. That salesman was pretty capable, even managed to get half a box of antiviral drugs. No wonder he had dared to pat his chest and assure him back then, "Bro, as long as you pay double, any medicine can be delivered." The real flame fireplaces that cost nearly 60,000 yuan were also fully installed. One was built into the living room wall and one into the master bedroom wall, with the chimneys extending outside, so there was no need to worry about carbon monoxide poisoning. Just toss in the firewood and they could be used right away. With both fireplaces burning, even in extreme cold of -70 degrees, it would still be enough to keep the 120 square meter apartment warm. He put the medicines into his storage space, led the big yellow dog into the bathroom, filled the bathtub with water, and bathed the dog at the same time. He took off the dog's leash, blow-dried its fur, tossed it a bone, and drove it out, no longer bothering with it. Zhou Chen stripped off his clothes and soaked his whole body in the warm water, squinting comfortably. That squint lasted for 2 hours. He was awakened by a burst of noise, and when he pulled open the curtains to look, it turned out that seawater was surging back into the city. The ferocious seawater was so powerful that it instantly submerged all buildings below 10 meters, sweeping into the city from east to west before branching off and flooding every corner of the city, big and small. Several fishing boats that came in with the seawater slammed mercilessly into the high rises. The Pearl Tower collapsed in an instant, and from then on the Magic City lost this landmark building. The group chat had exploded into chaos. Quite a few residents began realizing that something was wrong. This didn't look like an ordinary natural disaster. While trembling with fear, they also wailed that they hadn't stockpiled food. There's a shared mindset among Chinese people. When there's trouble, call the police. But they found the lines were constantly busy. Forget calling the police. Even every rescue number the residents could think of, not a single one could get through. Zhou Chen put on a bathrobe, took a towel, and rubbed his hair as he walked into the kitchen. Filet mignon with eggplant caviar tower, seafood pasta, pan-seared cod with asparagus, cream of mushroom soup, a plate of vegetable salad, a plate of fruit salad, a glass of 1982 Lafite, and a soothing violin piece. Zhou Chen listened to music and savored the food. Life couldn't be more enjoyable. Su Wanwan's calls came in again and again. Zhou Chen cut off a piece of steak, answered leisurely, and turned on speakerphone. Zhou Chen, could you let us come to your place and rest for a while? The flood is about to reach the 4th floor. We want to come to my place? Yes, I know there are some things. But after all, we're old classmates. At a time like this, if you give everyone a hand, then are you mentally prepared? Prepare for what? Zhou Chen let out a cold laugh. Crawl over to me and kneel to lick my boots. A busy tone came from the phone. No need to guess. Zhang Li must have snatched the phone away and smashed it to pieces. Zhang Li had always been like this. His sensitive and inferiority-ridden personality made him constantly covet other people's things while desperately wanting to cling tightly to what belonged to him. For Su Wanwan to call him at a time like this, she must have put it on speaker right in front of Zhang Li. Whether it was just humiliation or he really meant it, Zhang Li couldn't accept being told to kneel and lick boots. He put down the phone and continued enjoying the food. As he ate, Zhou Chen couldn't help sizing up the dog obediently curled up in the corner. A ring of black fur around its neck like a scarf. It looked more and more familiar the longer he looked. Holy shit, isn't this the watchdog from the lumber mill? What are the odds of running into it here? De Huang. Zhou Chen tried calling out. The big yellow dog huddled in the corner pricked up its ears, confused, thinking, cautious, afraid, and finally, with no other choice, got up from the ground and approached little by little, carefully. Zhou Chen reached out and stroked the dog, then suddenly grabbed the fur on its neck with force, and all that was heard was a yelp. De Huang bared its teeth and struggled, but didn't dare truly lash out or bark wildly. It could only whimper pitifully in a low voice, begging for mercy. Zhou Chen looked straight into the dog's eyes, his expression cold. The world has changed. If you're still like before, only knowing how to bluff, your fate will be to end up as a plate of dog meat in someone else's mouth. Show me what you're best at as a guard dog, and only then will there be a place for you in this home. Held by the scruff, De Huang trembled all over. Hearing the words dog meat, it didn't even dare struggle anymore. The moment Zhou Chen let go, De Huang tucked its tail and fled back to its original corner, wishing it could shrink into the wall itself, staring at him warily. Forget it. The lumber mill did business with its doors open. People came and went every day, this one petting it, that one teasing it. Could you expect a watchdog, in such a short time, to pounce ferociously like a vicious dog and tear into people? The only reason he brought it back was to provoke that bunch of beasts, so in his heart he didn't hold any other expectations for De Huang. In fact, after 3 years of the apocalypse, cats, dogs, and other pets had more or less been eaten to extinction by the survivors. The very few that stayed alive were all fierce and combative, some even gathering together to attack humans. If this dog doesn't change, in the end it'll just become a plate of dog meat. Natural selection, survival of the fittest. It is so for humans, and so it is for animals. Bang! De Huang, full of vigilance, suddenly perked up its ears. It glanced at its new master, and receiving no instructions, lay there without moving. Zhou Chen, if you've got the guts, get your ass out here. Daring to covet his woman, Zhongli felt he had been greatly humiliated. What made it even more depressing was that the speakerphone had been on at the time, so everyone heard Zhou Chen tell his woman to kneel and lick boots. Zhongli's face burned hot, although he was afraid of the knife in Zhou Chen's hand. In order to save face, he had no choice but to storm over aggressively to settle the score with Zhou Chen. Climbing from the 4th floor to the 23rd floor, his anger had been ground down to scraps in the process. Damn, this is exhausting. But everyone was following him, and it concerned a man's dignity, so he had to show some attitude. Right now he was tired, hungry, and thirsty, and through the door he could hear elegant violin music. That bastard Zhou Chen is actually relaxing at home, listening to music? Then wouldn't all of us crammed in the hallway be one huge joke? Zhou Chen, get the fuck out here. What? Weren't you acting all tough with that knife just now? I'm right outside your door now, what? Chickened out? Zhongli pounded furiously on the door and kicked it hard, cursing until his throat was practically smoking. Inside, Zhou Chen walked over to the stereo and reached out to turn the volume all the way up. Instantly, Mendelssohn's Concerto in D minor echoed through the entire hallway. The melody was cheerful and bright, with an impassioned, soaring tone, yet also full of rich romantic flair. It was as if the whole floor had become refined. Zhongli, Su Ruanruan, Chen Chong, and the others. Enough. Su Ruanruan stopped Zhongli's ridiculous behavior of cursing and kicking the door. What do you mean enough? If he insults you, he's slapping me in the face. Today I have to teach him a lesson. After yelling and cursing for ages, Zhongli was now panting from exhaustion. It was just one sentence. It didn't cost me a piece of flesh. Su Ruanruan genuinely looked down on people like Zhongli, sly enough when it came to underhanded tricks behind others' backs. But the moment he faced someone flashing a knife, he was scared out of his wits, only capable of acting fierce with his mouth. Those words made Zhongli very unhappy, and regardless of how many people were present, he flew into a rage. Are you still not over Zhou Chen? I knew you still liked him. What's so great about him? Isn't it just that he has a handsome face? Su Ruanruan was furious. Are you a fucking idiot? Throwing around jealous accusations without even considering the situation. Just because these people call you President Zhang to your face, do you really think you're some big shot? In private, these people are definitely cursing us as a heartless, shameless couple. Can't you control that mouth of yours? Chen Chong and the others seemed to turn their heads away, pretending not to hear. But in fact each of them was laughing inwardly nonstop. A punk girl stepped out, looking extremely impatient. So what are we doing? I'm so tired right now, I just want to sleep. If you make me sit in the hallway any longer, I'm going to lose my temper. Zhang Li, who was in a frenzy of jealousy, immediately lashed out with a stream of abuse. Lose your temper? Who the fuck do you think you are? If you want to sleep, then get the hell home and sleep. The punk girl stormed off in anger. Zhongli, are you crazy? Su Ruan was furious and hurried after her in high heels. Although the punk girl was a party-loving street girl, she had a relative in charge of industrial fire safety. Su Ruan had gone to great lengths to invite her to the gathering. With this outburst, wouldn't all her previous efforts be wasted? If she held a grudge and made things difficult for them, would the factory even be able to stay open? Zhongli, you're a complete useless fool, good for nothing but ruining things. Zhongli realized it too and quickly chased after her to apologize. Xiaoqing, don't be mad, listen to me. Once Zhongli left, the others naturally followed. For a time, the stairwell was filled with chaotic footsteps. Back on the 4th floor, the punk girl had finally been temporarily soothed. Through the window by the stairwell, they looked at the floodwaters continuing to rise under the streetlights. And the whole group was so worried they were practically tearing their hair out. At that moment, Zhou Chen took the initiative to make a video call. Zhang Li answered immediately, ready to curse Zhou Chen out in front of everyone, determined to win back at least a little face for himself. But the instant the video connected, it was as if his throat had been seized. He couldn't curse out a single word. On the screen, Zhou Chen was sitting on a soft, genuine leather sofa, wearing a clean bathrobe, with a table full of luxurious food in front of him, half eaten. He held a glass of red wine in his left hand and used his right to feed a dog a piece of Kobe steak. Gulp! Zhang Li couldn't help swallowing. Then, the sound of swallowing spread all around. Zhou Chen's lazy yet magnetic voice reached everyone's ears. Still not leaving? Looks like you'll be spending the night in the hallway again tonight. Tisk tsk. Zhang Li, Chen Chong. As men, you really don't measure up. How can men let women go hungry and suffer? Sigh. Enough of that. I'm going to take a nice hot bath. If any lady has changed her mind, remember to message me. Zhou Chen, I'm not done with you yet. After Zhou Chen cleaned up the kitchen and had just lain down on the bed, he found himself pulled back into the owner's main group chat again. The neighborhood committee Annie was reassuring everyone not to panic, while also calling on everyone to help each other. Everyone, don't panic. Although this flood is serious, the floodwaters will recede once the rain stops. The floodwater has already risen past the 3rd floor. Homeowners on the same floor should help one another and let residents from the 1st to 3rd floors stay at your homes temporarily. It'll be at most just a day or two. At the same time, homeowners whose homes have been flooded shouldn't be too upset. As long as the people are safe, that's what matters. After the flood recedes, calculate your respective losses, and when the time comes, our neighborhood committee will definitely help report them. And do our best to help everyone apply for as much flood relief subsidy as possible. There are still quite a few homeowners in the compound with no food left. If your family has stockpiled food, each household should contribute a little to help out. In the face of disaster, everyone should put aside differences, unite, and get through this together. A homeowner immediately snapped back. How dare you say that? At noon, the water level was still low enough to go out. But you wouldn't let us go out to grab supplies. Now look, everyone's going hungry. Exactly. If we'd gone out then and bought a few bags of dumplings, we could have held out for a few days. Damn it, my wife is about to give birth, and there's no fish or meat at home. Only a few handfuls of vegetables with barely any nutrition. The auntie stressed her tone. What a case of kindness being taken for ill intent. Wasn't I doing it for your safety? At noon, the water level was such that you could barely make it out the door, but the water was muddy and unclear. What if an accident happened? And then wouldn't you come blaming our neighborhood committee for not warning everyone? I'm warning certain people here. Don't add to the chaos at a time like this. Just do as I said just now. Everyone help each other get through tonight. I believe a large batch of supplies will be delivered to the compound tomorrow. Since things had come to this point, all the homeowners knew that complaining was useless. The homeless homeowners began asking for help in the group chat. Homeowners with no food at home began borrowing food in the group chat. Brothers upstairs, would anyone be able to let me stay the night? Does anyone have extra food? I'll pay for it. Messages kept popping up in the main group, quickly piling up to 99 plus. Zhou Chen shook his head helplessly. People in Magic City are all about refined living, particular about how overnight leftovers are unhealthy and insisting on eating fresh food every meal. Few people have the habit of stockpiling supplies. Generally, when they go out, they only buy vegetables for the day. There are even some residents refined to the extreme, who buy groceries meal by meal. Even if some people took the Typhoon stay-at-home warning seriously and bought food in advance, it still wouldn't be more than a week's worth. Never mind tomorrow. Residents would probably already be going hungry tonight. The neighborhood committee Annie didn't forget to call out Zhou Chen by name. Zhou Chen, I know you live alone. The reason I pulled you back into the main group is to tell you that if someone asks to stay at your place, I hope you won't refuse. We're all neighbors in the same compound. If you don't help at a time like this, then don't expect anyone to help you in the future when something happens to you. That last sentence carried a fair bit of personal warning and threat. Zhou Chen wasn't having it and fired back on the spot. Don't just talk about others. You should lead by example first. Everyone knows your children work abroad, and it's just you and your husband at home. So I suppose you wouldn't refuse pleas for help from disaster-stricken neighbors in your building, right? The neighborhood committee auntie, who lived in building 10, turned green in the face. She had just used her husband's poor health as an excuse and refused 2 households left homeless by the flood. This little brat was doing this on purpose to make things hard for her. Do you really need to remind me? If it weren't for my husband having a bad cold that could be contagious, I had already taken in all the neighbors from the 1st to 3rd floors. Heh, what a coincidence indeed. Zhou Chen couldn't be bothered to pay attention to this hypocritical old hag, who usually threw her weight around with her neighborhood committee status and had taken advantage of just about every household. He casually opened the owner's group chat for Building 21 to see what these people were talking about, and saw Zhang Li's plea for help. Everyone, I'm Zhang Li, the owner of 101. Would anyone be able to let us stay over? It'd be best if you have some extra food at home. We haven't eaten all day. Sorry, I already agreed to the owner of 102. I agreed to the owner on the 2nd floor. Zhang Li from 101. Was your place the one throwing a party last night? With so many of you, whose home could fit you all? Sorry, brother, there are too many of you, and I don't have much food at home either, so I can't help. Zhang Li waited for ages, but not a single person was willing to lend a hand. Everyone, I know there are a lot of us. I won't let anyone help for nothing. How about 3,000 a night? We'll pay separately for meals, and we'll leave as soon as the rescue team arrives tomorrow. What a joke. Which owner here cares about your 3,000? Still no one willing? Zhang Li could only raise the price. 6,000, please help us out. Us men can tough it out. But there are quite a few women in our group. If nothing else, just lend us a living room so we can sleep on the floor. 6,000, there are so many of you. You'd make the house a total mess. Better forget it. Zhang Li said all sorts of nice things, but still got no response at all. At this moment, everyone was still crammed into the stairwell on the 4th floor, all of them watching him. He could tell that Qin Chang and the others were already dissatisfied with him. If he couldn't even handle this little matter, it would be a total loss of face for him as their boss. Zhang Li gritted his teeth and had no choice but to raise the payment again. 15,000, and meals will be calculated per person, 500 per head. Whatever there is to eat is fine, even one bowl with an egg per person. With enough money on the table, someone was bound to be tempted. 15,000, just for one night's stay? Yes, I can transfer the money to you right now. You can let us come up after you've received it. Zhang Li let out a sigh of relief, hurrying to reply while cursing the other owners who had kept silent as trash. Zhou Chen took a look and saw that the one speaking was the tenant in 602. A single woman from out of town working for a living, apparently employed at a foreign company, and fairly pretty too. He wasn't familiar with her. In his previous life, when he had been driven out of the house by his aunt's family and forced to struggle for survival, this woman had still been alive. Anyone who could survive the extreme cold was no simple person. Zhang Li and the others were people he had tricked over here. With so many of these beasts, once they realized the apocalypse had arrived, they would inevitably become the biggest faction in Building 21 and could end up doing anything. Thinking of this, Zhou Chen felt responsible for giving a warning. Miss, there are nearly 30 of them, and the vast majority are men. Aren't you afraid you'll be letting wolves into your home? Who knows whether the rescue team will really come tomorrow or when the floodwaters will recede? He may be willing to pay for one day, but for 3 days, for days, or even 10 days to half a month, would he still be willing to pay? And when that time comes, do you, living alone, have the ability to drive them out? Just as both sides were about to reach an agreement, Zhang Li was furious enough to want to dig up Zhou Chen's ancestral grave. Miss, don't listen to this guy's nonsense. I have a personal grudge against him. He's deliberately trying to screw me over. With so many owners in the group, if I, a factory owner, go back on my word, how am I supposed to do business in the future? Besides, this is a society ruled by law. If I really stiff you and refuse to pay, you can just call the police on me after the floodwaters recede. Zhou Chen's words still had some effect. The woman in 602 said she needed to think about it some more. Just then, Zhang Li sent another message. Miss, I'll still pay the money. My girlfriend has a Chanel bag here, only bought half a month ago, worth tens of thousands, definitely authentic. As long as you're willing to help, this bag is yours. The previously silent owner of 602 replied with a message. I want to inspect the item first. Is that okay? The moment Zhou Chen saw that, he couldn't be bothered to say another word. Just as he was about to toss aside his phone and go to sleep, someone in the group started bombarding it with voice messages. Brothers in 101. With so many of you squeezed together, it must be inconvenient. How about this? My place can spare a bedroom and the living room. Just give me 10,000, and hot water is free to use. There are eggs and noodles too, 300 per person for those. What do you think? 1101, you can come up right now. I'll go fry some eggs and cook noodles for everyone. Zhou Chen couldn't help but sneer. Another one inviting the wolf into the house. This aunt of his had always been obsessed with money. As a compulsive gambler, being able to make over 10,000 just by letting a group of people stay for one night was naturally something she couldn't ask for more. Besides, the apartment had been rented with money in the first place. The only reason Ant's family rented it was to force him to pay for his cousin's marital home, so it definitely lacked enough winter clothes. And once the extreme cold arrived in a few days, wouldn't they freeze like dogs? With some food, they might hold out a few more days, long enough to have the strength to go out and snatch some supplies to bring home. But now, for a little money, they're selling off their food. A bunch of beasts and a whole family of scoundrels. They'll be quite a show to watch when the time comes. But an even greater possibility was that they would join forces to plot against him.